Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and I am documenting my journey to complete debt freedom and financial independence. And today is a cash stuffing video, and I'm also doing a bit of a Q&A as well. So I'm going to answer as many questions as I can in this video. If I don't get through them all, then without making this a ridiculously long video, then I will just do another one. And if you have more questions or follow-up questions or anything like that, you can ask. So keep that in mind if you want to drop any questions in the comment box below. So I won't be talking about the amounts that I'm putting into each envelope. I'm just going to go ahead and stuff it, and then that way I don't have to go back and do a voiceover. But before I start, for once, not something that I do very often on here, I have Happy Mail. And this is Happy Mail that came from the US. It took a while to get here because she worked with me on going some alternative routes of not having to do the large, paying the large amounts for shipping that they have for like Priority and Express. So it did come by snail mail. It took about 2 months-ish to get here. But I'm really thankful that she made that available to me. I'm not going to show the front because it shows names, but you will probably recognize it by the design of them. And these are from Brianna Life and Budgets. So I absolutely love Nightmare Before Christmas and Jack Skellington and Oogie Boogie and Zero and Sally and all of them. And so when I saw her come out with the Halloween ones, I immediately, and she said, she would, take orders sometimes by DM on Insta. I immediately contacted her to see if I could get one. Not so much for one that says Halloween, even though that one's kind of cool, but it's not a big thing here. But for this one, Christmas. So this is my new Christmas envelope. Brianna, thank you so much for trusting me that yes, you actually can send it just in a regular cardboard mailer type envelope. No, it's not going to bother me that I'm not going to get it overnight. I understand that I am in Australia and you are not Amazon, so it's not going to be able to be, posted free and all of that right away and such. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I absolutely love it. And I haven't punched it yet because I'm still in the process of setting up my new cash binders, which I haven't done yet for that. But if you have not checked out her store, definitely go and look at her store. It's a Breezy Budget Shop, and I'll link that down below as well. She just has so much different cool stuff and t-shirts and everything else. And she's got a YouTube channel. I'll link that. Make sure you go and watch her. She has the most adorable baby boy too. So yeah, follow her on Instagram, all of that good stuff. Show her lots of love and support. Thank you so much, Brianna, for sending that out. Really did. I was so happy when I got this. I was like, I have Happy Mail from the US. I get to be like all the cool kids today. Yeah, looking forward to using that once I get my new binders set up. I did also finish up my $5 challenge for August. If you watched my video yesterday, just wanted to show that I have put it into an envelope. You can see between the little lines, there's $5 notes in there. It's taped up, and yeah, that is good. So I'm going to go ahead, get the money counted out, and start with some of the questions that I had. And probably one of the more common ones has been about moving to Australia and what brought us here. And that is pretty simple. My husband, he is also American and worked in international logistics and transport. So he worked for a very large logistics company in the United States. They were and still are based in the US, Canada, Mexico, China, and they came into the Australian market, and he was selected to head up their Australian division when they came here. Bail money. So this was the bail money that I had from 2 weeks ago. I had $40. I did not spend any of it. So that $40 is going to be used, and that's going to go into my citizenship fund. I have new bail money. This is what was left over from these past few weeks. So 20, 30, 40, 50. So $60 is going into the bail money for next week. And we'll set that one to the side. So yeah, when he got the offer, it was very, very quick. They came and they asked him, would you be interested in taking this this position? And so he interviewed for it. He received the position. They fast-tracked his passport, and he was on a plane within 2 weeks. out to Australia. And so I stayed behind to take care of everything else that is involved in moving for that. So that was just beauty and health. And then I'm going to go to my high priority envelopes. It was a bit of a major decision, yes, in that, but it was also, I mean, we were in Nebraska at the time, in Omaha. I was just finishing up graduate school, so I was ABD at that point, which means all but dissertation. And if you have ever done a PhD or know somebody who does a PhD, the one thing that no advisor would ever recommend for you to do is to move to the other side of the country while doing your dissertation, and I did just that. So he got here, we got here 6 months after him. And I got in contact with a relatively well-known psychology researcher that had done some guest presentations and lectures and such at my university. It's met him and seen him at conferences and such. And so I sent him an unsolicited email, said, this is who I am. I'm finishing up my dissertation. Here is my background. My strengths are in research methodology and statistics and emotions in the workplace. Do you have a need for an RA? And so he hired me on as an RA with him pretty much 2 days later after I sent that email. And my husband's contract was only supposed to be for 2 years. And so when his 2 years finished up, they actually wanted to send him to Williston, North Dakota, which my husband is from Montana, so they thought that that would be no problem. I am not sure if you are familiar with Williston, North Dakota. There is not much there. And so having a background in HR as I do, looked through his contract, and he didn't have a return clause in his contract, and I had received an offer from the university that I was at for a 3-year position there, and that they would sponsor a new visa. And so we negotiated his separation package from his company, and that included a non-compete clause and such. And so, yeah, so we ended up staying here. They lost an employee, and we have been here now for 11 years. Do we have any intentions of moving back? No, we do not. We do very much consider ourselves to be Australian. Our son considers himself Australian. We very much identify with the culture here and absolutely love it. You know, we have all of our friends and our jobs and everything else for that. And one of the questions that came with that, so do we think that we'll move back to the US? No. And then there was also a question about why do we keep our American citizenship? Cost. Mentioned this, I think, a couple times before. The cost of renouncing and revoking your US citizenship is astronomical. It starts around $5,000 per person US, and so we would have to convert that into Australian dollars. We would have to have an agent, a barrister, a lawyer to also handle all of the processes. So the US actually makes it extremely, extremely difficult to no longer be a citizen there. And I'll be a bit cynical here. You hear a lot of people all the time in the US say, oh, if you don't like it, leave. And it is an extremely, extremely complicated process. So for now, we will maintain our US citizenship, get our Australian citizenship, have dual citizenship, and then we'll go from there. And there are also still some benefits of staying a US citizen. Our son, that is his decision to make on his own, on his own for that. We're not going to make that decision for him, but for my husband and myself, and my husband would never renounce his citizenship either, has just absolutely no desire to, but we'll see what tax implications are. However, we did, so those two questions were from Nija at Budgeting the Bacon, and then Live Life Without Regrets 737. They asked those two. Kind of related along that, Kitchen Shenanigans, Shannon asked what has been the best and worst part of moving to Australia? And Jan's Wallet asked what were some of the culture shocks that we had. So I think probably the one thing that I love the best having moved to Australia is Australia really does follow the mentality of you work to live, not live to work. And so we are very much encouraged to take our recreation leave to have a balance between our work life and our non-work life, be that, family, personal, anything like that. It is still a very employee centered country. I have seen some shifts over the past 11 years, but it's nothing like in the US where a 40-hour work week really means a 60-hour work week and such. People actually take their morning breaks, their morning tea and their afternoon tea. They take their lunch breaks. They leave work on time. When my husband changed companies, so when he was no longer with the company that he came out here for, he was used to working just 24/7, and he would have meetings at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because they would have them US time, which is part of working international business and such as is. When he switched to his new job, and he took a few steps down and such when he did that because he was just kind of tired of the rat race, but not having that expectation of always being, basically having an electronic leash is really nice. So it's really laid back. It's extremely, extremely friendly as well. Neighbors know each other. It is safe. Not that there's not safe parts in the US, but you see children, kindy age, 5, 6 years old, and they're walking to school with their mates, or they're riding public transport, and everybody looks out for everyone. The way that I described it when we first got here is it almost did have a bit of a 50s vibe to it of just that level of safety and looking out for your neighbor and people wanting to know each other, not having these big fences and I don't want to know anybody around me. So I really like that community aspect of it. But there were definitely some culture shocks. One of them being that at least in Brisbane, there is not a 24/7 immediacy for everything. So 24/7, 24-hour grocery stores, except now out near the airport and a few other places. No. On a Sunday, the shops close at, 5, 6 o'clock. So if you have not planned it's what you were going to make, if you wanted to, do something spur of the moment, the shops are closed. And they used to close earlier on Saturdays as well. Now a lot of them are open until 8, 9 o'clock. So even on weekends, people who are working still have their hours and their time with their family. So not having that immediacy in Brisbane, not having pay at the pump for fuel. One that really, really threw me off, and that it actually shocks a lot of our friends back in the US, is also in Australia, the police. So the police presence and the RBTs, so random breathalyzer tests. So you can be pulled over for any reason. They don't need to have, really probable cause. They can search your car. You don't have to be driving wonky or anything. And every time you get pulled over, you have to do a breathalyzer test. And they call it drink driving in Australia because one drink is enough to put you over the limit. And it is an automatic suspension of license. There is no leeway. So you can come up to an RBT checkpoint and don't try avoiding it because they will track you down. So that's really not good. You can be driving on the beach and you're driving one way and the cops are driving another and they just hold it out the window and you breathe into it. So that really was probably one of the biggest ones, is that, the latitude that police in Australia have as compared to in the US with everything they need to have, a reason or a probable cause for it. That one was really interesting to adapt to learn about. In terms of culture wise, they not having things 24/7. Oh my gosh, not getting interrupted while being out eating. So the whole pay before you have your meal delivered, that's still a little bit weird, but not being bothered while you're eating, the not tipping, that was easy enough. That was a shock as well. So being able to go out for a 1 or a 2 hour lunch, seeing people having just like a glass of wine on their lunch break and then going back to work. Oh, Melbourne Cup. So when, organizations, they shut down, they have a lunch and they have gambling and they have drinks and everything else going on in the workplace during the Melbourne Cup. That was, those were some strange ones. This is basically, it's just a very laid back culture of to each their own. You do you, I do me. And that's pretty much, not literally that, well, maybe. Anywho, that's a whole different question. Yeah. It's, very much a do as you please as long as you're not harming others type. And I love that. And that really helps. So Abby from Abby Tries to Budget had asked, what is your go-to self-care habit? And definitely for me, some of my three big ones, one, taking bubble baths. I love just a good long bubble bath and then, like a face mask or something afterwards. Swimming is a really good form of self-care. It clears my mind, just staring at the black line, being in the water, being at the beach as well is another. So just trying to nourish my body, my spirit, my mind, all of that, and making sure that I take time to myself where I decompress and just not being bothered by anyone else. I always take 5 to 10 minutes to myself every day, even, if it's just for meditation time, reflection time, a cup of tea, a short walk, anything like that. I always factor in me time. I do. I need to have that but otherwise I just get too overwhelmed with things sometimes. And what I get overwhelmed with the most, and this was a question by Nozilla 0921, was with how do I keep pushing forward with my health struggles? And it is it is a challenge. So if you are new to my channel, or if you haven't watched all of my other videos, in July 2020, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I have an underlying genetic condition called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, and that is an enzyme that is produced by your body that allows you to basically process the toxins in your blood and such. And I cannot process those toxins, and so what it causes is both lung and liver damage. And this is a condition that you need to have the faulty gene from both of your parents. So as I say, I get to blame both of my parents. There is no cure. There is no synthetic. There is no nothing. I am in end-stage liver failure at this time. And so I am currently at a stable position and not in need for transplant. But usually, if you have liver disease or liver damage, if you remove whatever it is that is damaging it, so like if you're an alcoholic, if you stop drinking, then you will stop doing the damage and it won't spread as quickly. Or if you are taking too many over-the-counter pain medication, so Advil, aspirin, all of that, terrible for your liver. Opioids, even worse. But if you take those away, you can slow it down. This is my own body attacking itself, so it's not an autoimmune, but it is similar in that sense. So there's no slowing any of this down. So it will continue to deteriorate over time to where my only option is transplant. And it is tough because you get mad. You get so mad at what you can't do anymore. And that affects you mentally, of knowing that these are all the different things that I can do. And so there are some days it's, really where you just have to experience those emotions. You can't try to sweep them away. You can't brush them away. If you're having a bad day, have a bad day. If you're having a cry day, have a cry day. Have a cry week if you need to. When I was first diagnosed, I didn't get out of bed for a month. Literally, I did not take a shower for an entire month. I barely ate. I just laid in bed all day. I maybe got out for about a total of an hour. And that's also where exercise, and so getting back to exercise started helping me as well for that. And nobody understands. And that's the other thing, is that a lot of people will tell you, oh, I'm here for you. Let me know if you need anything. And a lot of them have really good intentions, but people get tired of you being sick as well, because you don't get better. You learn to manage it better, but you don't get better. And it's really hard to explain. It's you go through a bit of a social isolation that only other people that are in that situation understand. And I think the closest that people without a terminal illness have come to experiencing this has been with lockdown restrictions with COVID, where you've had to isolate, where you can't go out and see people and everything as such. That is what it feels like every day, living with a terminal illness, because the people that you think are your friends usually end up not being your friends, and the ones that you didn't think were actually are. You lose friends when you get sick. You just do, because you're not the same person that you were before, and not everybody is comfortable with the idea of death as well. It's a mental, that is a mental hurdle. And that Chris, at Chris Budgets, you had asked, what's the best change that I've made mentally that has reflected in my finances? If I am being honest, it is becoming comfortable and at peace, knowing that I'm dying, and knowing that everything I'm doing with my finances is going to leave my family in the best possible position when I'm gone. There's not going to be any, no surprises, is having money set aside for that. And so knowing that my family is not going to have to stress over any of that, that has been really, really freeing. You no longer have an emotional attachment to this when you truly realize that you can't take it with you. Unless, it's buried with you, but it serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. And that has been that has been probably the best change that I have had. And it has allowed me to have more, I guess, more or better open dialogues. Crystal, Budget by the Bag, you had asked, do I have an open dialogue with my son about money with Peyton? I have open dialogue with Peyton about everything. Absolutely everything. Money being one of them. In fact, he can finish my sentences now for him on, you know, whenever he has something. He's like, oh, I'm working overtime this week. I'm like, you know what you can do with that extra money? He's like, I know. I can invest it. I can put it in my savings. He goes, or I can go and I can buy a new game. I'm like, yes, you can do whatever you want with it. I've taught him everything that I know, and he's learning along with me, and he's shown a willingness to learn, and I can't ask for anything more. He knows all about my student loan debt that we had. He knows about my credit card debt from when, from when I was younger and such. He knows about like the house mortgage and everything there. And that goes to your other question as well, that you had asked, without sounding rude, is do we believe that we changed the second time around with debt? And our second time around is a much different story than the first time around. Our first time around was credit card debt and student loan debt. Getting my PhD was not inexpensive, especially doing a PhD as a single mom when you're living on, a stipend. And I did borrow more than I needed just to cover my tuition a few of those years. That is how I ended up with like $132,000-ish in student loans. If I hadn't taken, the extra money, it would have been well below $100,000. But this time around, our credit card, so if for those of you that haven't watched the debt confession video, where my credit card debt came from was that, it's funny that I have vacation here, was that I had, as I do every year, I had booked all of my travel for work. And so for work, we're allowed to book our own travel. And then we submit all of our forms, we get reimbursed from our research funds, and then we put that back. Have never had a problem in the past, but in the past, never had a pandemic happen. And so I had all of my travel booked. It was over $10,000 worth for my conferences and everything for the year. And everything, everything is getting canceled. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to put the reimbursement in because they're not going to give me the research funds. That's fine. Everything can be canceled and I'll just get the money back. No, because I did all of my booking with the airline that I had always used, and that was Virgin Airlines, and they went into administration, which is the same as bankruptcy. And instead of giving money back, they gave me travel credits. So I had to pay all of the money back that was paid. And I now have almost $12,000 worth of travel credits that I can use when I get to go on vacation to Egypt or Greece or New Zealand or anywhere that I can go. The one thing that I would say that I learned from there is that, having the money set aside for all of the travel so then I can pay it off right away. That's about the only thing. Otherwise, it's when we're back, back up and open to traveling, I'm going to go right back to doing it. I'm going to go right back to putting it on my credit card. For the loan, we had to get the loan because we had to establish credit. I followed the Dave Ramsey method for paying off all of our debt, and his, whole thing, you don't invest, you pay off your debt only. You don't ever buy a car with anything but cash. You don't use credit cards, blah, blah, blah. And those are the three absolutely worst pieces of advice that I ever followed. And if I could go back 15 years ago, I would smack myself upside the head and say, don't do this again. Because those things, credit might not matter in the US if you're trying to get a house. Credit sure matters in Australia if you're trying to get a loan for a house. You have to have shown that you are able to repay your debts. We didn't have that when we went to get a house. So we could not get anybody that would finance us for our mortgage unless we did that. And so that's why we had to take that one out. I can point to every single thing that we have because of it. Because of that loan, we have grass in our yard, and we have a higher fence that we need for our dogs. I have $20 left over, so I missed something somewhere, which to be expected. But yeah, so that's really that debt was for, and that's what it paid for. So it served a purpose. It's not that, I have different things that I'm like, I had all this debt and I don't know even what I spent it on. I can pinpoint all of those different things. And that was a mistake on our part of just blindly following the guidance of one individual without actually researching the implications of following that guidance. And yes, I know there's a lot of people that love Dave Ramsey, and I'm not bashing him or anything at all. I could if I wanted to, but I won't. And it's not for his financial advice, it's for other things. But You do have to look into what is the impact of, if I do this, what is the impact going to be on me long term, particularly if I am in a different environment than where that advice is being given as well. Now, granted, we never thought or knew that we were going to be moving to Australia to get, you know, our citizenship and all of that, which that envelope's starting to get a bit thick. But that's a really, you know, but that's a really big part, is that in some places, if you actually follow, you know, if you actually follow that advice, it can lead you astray, and it can make things more difficult. So I have to do a quick voiceover here because this is about where my phone recording just went really wonky. But basically, yeah, you know, just caveat emptor, buyer beware. Know what you're getting into with the decisions that you are making. Make sure that you research it to ensure that it is going to suit you. So that is all that I have for today for the cash stuffing and for the Q&A. If you have any additional questions or some follow-ups, definitely drop them down in the comment box below. I can always get to them at another time. Thank you to everyone for submitting your questions. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up. If you want to follow along this journey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until the next time, do please remember to choose kindness, show gratitude, and always keep a positive mindset.